Next time you walk through a door, don't hold it open for the person behind you. You're in like the car park, just cut in and take the space. But it was an old lady, I just had to let her take it. I was like, fair enough, old people are exempt. And on the other side of your nice guy is a very sexy, wonderful, dark masculine that every woman is waiting for.
I want to be seen intelligent and capable. If you don't know your needs, by the way, what happens?
So what is the dark masculine? Why do we think like 50 Shades of Grey was so phenomenally popular?
What is a way that a man could articulate his vulnerabilities if he really has this need to, that doesn't turn the woman off and can actually liberate love and passion?
So the one question we can always come back to is...
Let's just set our intention together here. May this podcast be deeply, deeply valuable for the men and women that watch. May we speak from our hearts and share things that create and liberate love.
May this podcast be a natural, joyful, easeful, and connectable flow for those who drop in. May they find what they need. May this be for the highest good of all beings. And may this serve the awakening of the masculine, specifically the healthy dark masculine at this time on the planet. Yahoo.
Aho. Aho. All right, well, we are recording, so let's dive in, shall we? I'd love to start with you sharing who you'd like to reach with this episode today, who it's for you.
I would love to reach the man who has angry outbursts, the man who never gets the girl, the man who never gets that promotion, but keeps trying his damnedest to do so and never seems to get what he wants. I'm speaking to that man today.
Oof, that's powerful. For me, I'm speaking to a man who knows he has gifts but is frustrated with actualizing them. It's kind of similar to what you shared, like kind of like having a desire. It's very frustrating, I think, to have a desire, something that really, really matters to a person, and to feel like you're trying super hard not to be able to get it. So for you, when you look at these men that you're speaking to, what are some things that typically block them that you can see from getting their desires with women or with their business? What are things you commonly hear?
Yeah, so much is around rejection, fear of rejection. And I think for men, bless them, they're so much more sensitive sometimes than us women.
Yes.
It's interesting. We look at women as the more emotional of the two genders. And actually what I find is that men are so exquisitely sensitive. And many men just haven't tapped into that truth within them. Because often there's that fear of rejection, that fear of seeming stupid or small or not having their shit together or not leading how the woman wants them to or how their job demands of them. And that holds so many men back. Yeah.
What's the solution? Or what's a solution?
Facing it fucking face on.
Yeah.
Like looking that right in the eye and just doing the thing.
Yes.
Holding the part of us that is afraid, is scared. And a lot of my clients, we go into deep inner child work and really unraveling a lot of a sometimes father wound, often mother wound. Those are the core archetypal stories that we are running in our lives in relationship to what we want, our goals, and often with the feminine. And so, yeah, that can be a core piece is an absent father or a mother who was overbearing, and going deeper into those.
Yeah, I think that's genius. I'm not sure you know this about me, but early in my life, when I started to realize that I needed to go face some fears, and it actually started with dance. I was always the guy that would stand off to the side. Because I would much prefer like a one-on-one private conversation at a party than to actually be seen on the dance floor, unless you got enough alcohol in me or something. And I was like, why is it that I can't just move my body and feel okay? And so I started off on this fear-facing journey where I would sing in public and dance in public and give speeches to restaurants and strangers and just like try to take up space and face that fear. But one thing that I didn't know at the time was the inner work that you just mentioned. So like the mother wound, the father wound. So I was basically facing fears, not from a place of real vulnerability and like, I'm afraid right now. I'm scared to be seen by people, but I love you and I promise you're safe, etc. I would be like, hey everybody. And I realized later that it was actually, I was kind of hurting myself in some way because there was still that part of me that was really scared that I didn't even acknowledge. I was more trying to kill that part or try to build an ego or a confidence over top of that part. And even though I gained skill, that was something that kind of, I think, held me back from gaining the real depth that I wanted to gain, And so now if I face a fear, which I do almost every week, I think every single week of my life, I feel scared. I doubt myself. I feel like an imposter sometimes. I don't think it's about getting rid of those parts as much as it's about relating with them from a space of love and compassion. That's my approach. What's the approach you take to help a man overcome his fears? Because I agree that it's really just fear that stops us. Even the man that's trying so hard, I guarantee there's some fear that's stopping him. I'd be curious to hear your approach. Miss Alex.
That's actually doctor to you.
Dr. Alex.
Thank you.
More superior woman Alex.
My chair is actually like 2 inches taller than this as well. So, there's that thing in therapy called exposure therapy where there's a little, if you're scared of spiders, for example, they have the spider and it's just here. And then they're like, we're going to bring it closer and closer. And then what I love doing is, because often a lot of people who are held back by fear have this people pleaser tendency as well. It's like they try to be nice. They'll go out of their way to really help someone, often to their own detriment. And so what I love doing is little steps. So I have one client at the moment who I was like, right, next time you walk through a door, don't hold it open for the person behind you. And he's like,
oh my God.
Exactly.
It's real shit, yeah.
I was like, next time you're in like the car park, just cut in and take the space.
Yeah, totally.
It was really funny. He got on the call after and he was like, but it was an old lady. I just had to let her take it. I was like, fair enough. Old people are exempt. But yeah, it's like, just start with the small things. Kind of like fine, I can take it. It's just equal. Here we are both right now. Or maybe I'm busy and I'm not going to offer that person in the bank the space in front of me.
Yes.
And actually just do that and start there, because then you can incrementally work towards that deeply vulnerable conversation with the person you really like,
100%. And that's why I think traveling alone, I think is really important for the nice guy. I'm a recovering nice guy and people pleaser. And I found that traveling really helped me feel safe to explore different parts of myself that I wouldn't feel safe to be around with people that knew me. But because they didn't know me and I was in a totally different country, I was like, oh, well, fuck. If they see me as like less put together or less high functioning or ugly or whatever I was afraid to be rejected for, then that kind of helped me build the fear. So it was kind of like slowly working my way up. And I think rejection is the big fear for nice guys. I think that's the big fear that they aren't willing to face. And maybe, have you found that they're aware that they have that fear? Or do you find that their dialogue is less around I'm afraid to be rejected and more around something else?
I think there isn't actually that awareness there.
Yeah.
And I think there's often another piece that was dropping in as you were talking was how much we have almost deified intelligence, deified wisdom and knowing what to do, And
what does deified mean?
Deified is like almost like made a god. Like we have turned into, like knowledge has become godliness, It's like if I don't know what to do in this moment, I need to like make it up somehow or just pretend that I do. And I feel like a lot of, that's another thing that a lot of people can come to. And, as an ex-medical doctor myself, there is very much this like, I know, I need to know all the time what's going to happen
I can imagine as a doctor, yeah.
Yeah, and so that then, after years on the treadmill of education to the point of like, I think that's all I ever knew until the age of 28. It's just, and that's 4 years older than you are now, which I just keep loving. You're just such a shining little beacon of wisdom for your age. I love it, Brett.
Thank you.
It just was. I didn't even question that, like, knowing something was the most important thing. And so I feel a lot of deconditioning around the need to be the one who knows or to be seen in that way is also really valuable for a lot of men.
I think I still struggle with that. I noticed you mentioned my age. I'm still in my 20s, and I still feel this sort of desire to prove myself. And I can notice this sort of desire to want to like speak up, and I literally have to like, oh, it feels like taming a horse. You know, the horse wants to run. I'm like, hey girl, just come back into your, you know, into your core, into your gut, because yeah, there's a part of me that does want to prove myself. I want to be seen intelligent and capable, and I mean, I work with 200 plus men at this point, and to feel incapable is like, to me, it's probably been the one or two thing that has come up the most that men hate to feel, is to feel incapable or incompetent or impotent, like just not powerful, not connected to their power. Where women, on the other hand, what would you think, would theirs be more related to beauty in your experience and as a woman? Like the feeling that women tend to hate the most? Like not feeling beautiful or not feeling radiant? Do you find that there's that difference?
It depends how much a woman's in her masculine or her feminine.
Yes.
I would say I very much valued intelligence over, I wouldn't call it beauty or radiance, but more like social acceptance, it feels like. Like a man might be seeing it from, I need to feel empowered and be able to lead, but a woman might see in that moment what she feels she needs to know on behalf of the social environment she's in that moment. So it's more about social acceptance. Women are social oriented creatures, and they're much more likely to care what a lot of people think about them, which is why in teenagers now, for example, women are so much more negatively affected mentally by the social media and TikTok and all these things. But actually men won't be like, oh, that guy thinks I'm a dick. It's like, well, whatever. If I don't know that guy, and if I haven't seen how he operates, and I haven't, whatever, if I haven't decided I respect him, then I'm not going to take that on board as easily.
Yeah.
So for a woman, I feel it's more around social acceptance.
Oh, that's interesting. That makes sense to me. I think that the biology of men versus women is something I'd like to learn more about so I can understand some of those basic differences. I feel called to go into the topic of relationships. You down?
Yes.
Yeah. Because we're kind of talking to nice guys. Nice guys struggle in relationships, and I struggled in my last relationship because I was trying to please my partner way too much, and I felt really scared to tell the truth a lot of times because I knew it would disappoint her or upset her in some way. And I think part of that was like my ex is partly responsible. I didn't find she helped create a safe space, but ultimately it's me at the end of the day that needs to feel comfortable to speak the truth. And I didn't, because this was my closest relationship. And so there was the most at stake, and I felt scared to lose what I had. And so I wouldn't speak the truth. And that caused, you can imagine, just tons of difficulties in our relationship, and was one of the main reasons I think that our relationship ended, was because of my inability to speak the truth, which is a great lesson for me to learn. And I still find myself, especially when I have that attachment relationship with a woman, sometimes a man I respect or admire, to say a difficult truth or to say something that I just need to share, like my body can just kind of like clench up, and it's like I can't seem to say it, at least as a natural response. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
David Data is someone I love to come back to again and again as a teacher in this realm. This is just hard for everyone, full stop. So whoever's suffering with that, and I too can say that my last relationship, was it 4 years ago now, similar dynamic of like not wanting to jeopardize the relationship by saying things that were hard, or maybe just not even knowing how to know what my needs were.
Yes.
In that moment.
Yes.
How can you share what you don't even know?
Yes.
Or you're not even honest with yourself about? That's step number one, right?
Yeah.
So it's difficult. Have self-compassion. Number two would be David Data's teachings are so profound because he really spells out to the man how important it is for a man, from the perspective of the feminine, to actually be holding your central pillar of truth, of alignment, because that is what a woman naturally magnetizes towards and wants to follow.
Yeah.
And you think you're pleasing her by doing what she wants, but actually the feminine doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Doesn't
want to be pleased.
She doesn't want to be pleased. She wants to be led and told what to do in certain moments. Not all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's looking to you to guide her through her own emotional turbulence, chaos, which men often aren't subject to the same degree that us women are.
Yes.
And that's what we want at the end of the day. Even if we don't know we want it, that's what we're biologically tapped into.
Which is one of the most scary things for a nice guy, because they're so maniacally focused on doing the right thing and getting it right, and not wanting to step on anyone's toes and trying to do the right thing. And there's a pressure there to lead a woman. There's a pressure there to be responsible for leading the relationship. And I really think like it's so funny how many things I'm noticing in myself during this conversation, things I can see in the past. I think that it's so valuable to find a way to be confident from within. Like that to me is just like the ultimate, is being secure with me being the voice of approval, being having an internal locus of focus, not an external locus.
What you're pointing at here is the solar plexus center,
Yes.
which is it's a plexi of nerves. Like it's actually just a massive ganglion of different neurons, like medically. However, if we look at the yogic philosophy and energetic system, then it's also an energy center in the body. And so the way that we can start to foster this internal locus is to actually align with what we say we're going to do, which is integrity, which is something that having shared space with you for the past week, I can say, I love the way you do your mornings. I really see you show up in integrity. You do what you say you're going to do. And I admire that so much. And so we can only truly know how we feel and attune to ourselves when we show up for ourselves, connect with our body, connect with our integrity. And then when we live from that space, then we're just going to know when something feels out of alignment. It's going to feel just, ugh. And that's when you can communicate that through your heart, which is what David Data is always talking about. And my personal passion is around the healthy, dark masculine, which we can go into in a moment.
Yes, I'd love to.
But yeah, when you can communicate, when that feeling arises, but through the space of the heart, that then is going to be received well by the feminine.
Yes.
Because she can feel your heart and she can feel your truth
Yes.
at the same time. But if you just spout your truth out without the heart, it's going to land badly.
Yeah, much different. That's great. Before we move into the dark masculine, I want to give everyone watching some really practical stuff around needs psychology. So I actually break down expressing and communicating needs in just 2 steps. The first is to know your needs. The second is to honor your needs, which is a whole different game than knowing them. Because you can know what your needs are and still choose not to respect them or honor them or be in integrity with them or communicate them. But I actually think that knowing one's needs is actually like 60 to 70% of the work, because that's the work of doing exactly what you just said and connecting with the body, getting out of the head and into the heart. It's taking time to be alone and not be afraid to be alone and to be with what's really present. It's about traveling. It's about, I think for me, it's just been about being aware of what's going on in my mental, my emotional body and learning to navigate it and not rely on external forces necessarily. So that's knowing the needs, and then honoring it is scheduling things in my calendar. It's communicating my needs. It's setting aside time so that my emotional needs are met, etc. What would you add to that process of knowing your needs and honoring your needs to help some people have some practical insights to start doing this process? Because if you don't know your needs, by the way, what happens if you don't know and honor your needs?
Just nothing. Your needs don't get met. The joy in your life just decreases, and you start to resent people around you, which is often a nice guy thing.
Oh, I've done that so many
often
times.
There's so much resentment. It's like, but it's like, hey, but you never communicated your needs. So how can that person meet your needs?
Yes.
And I'm facing this right now with one relationship in my life. And it's like, oh, well, you just haven't been communicating what's okay and what's not for you. So of course it's going to lead to resentment, but you should be looking at yourself for that.
Yeah.
One thing I'd really add into what you shared was exercise. For the masculine, there's often so much
really good one.
energy.
Yeah.
And then modernity has us living in our heads, right? We're just so in our heads. And so we're like, get off the 9-to-5 treadmill, if you even still live that. Not many people do these days.
Yes.
But get off your job. You kind of like get home and you're just so up here. And then just exercise can really take you back into the body, because the first way we can even access what we need is by realizing that we don't feel okay or good.
Yes.
So one of our needs is not being met. So how do we know that? Well, normally there's a locus in the body somewhere. It's normally in the stomach, the chest, the throat, or the jaw, or somewhere. Something's tight, and it just doesn't feel good. When we can connect to that and channel our energy through exercise, through movement, we can actually start to come back into our bodies.
Yes.
So if you're a guy and you're not even moving your body, I doubt you're going to be connected to your needs.
Yes, I think that's such a valuable, and just movement alone, to take one thing away, I think is really powerful. One more thing I want to share with this, and then I really do want to move on to the dark masculine. I'm curious about your thoughts there. So I've been trained in this therapy called IFS, Internal Family Systems, but I think that just IFS alone sometimes isn't enough. I like somatic IFS, which is a much more embodied process of feeling what we feel and dialoguing using movement as storytelling, using our voice as storytelling to share with the vulnerable, exiled parts of ourselves. And I think that practice for me has been so monumentally valuable for this process of knowing my needs, because it's given me real-time feedback from what different parts of me feel. Now, when people initially begin this process of dialoguing with themselves, I found that they actually don't really get responses back because the connection hasn't really been forged yet. But the more that we practice dialoguing with different parts of ourselves, the scared part, the hurt part, the pissed off part, all the parts, the more trust gets built in the system, and the more the parts of us that have been sort of fragmented from ourself start to trust us again and open their ears to what we have to say. And then they start to dialogue back. And then imagine if you had the power to, at any point you feel a little bit off, you could check in, place your hand on the part of your body where you feel it, and say, hey, what's going on? What do you need? And you get a response. And then you have real-time feedback of literally what you need, what's going on, and you can instantly make a shift.
That is extremely valuable.
Extremely valuable. So I think exercise is amazing, and I think one of those fundamentals. And then I think learning some deeper work like you and I do. Like we take people through inner child experiences. We take people through experiences where they can dialogue with themselves. And I think that therapy work is also very valuable for this process.
You know, the first experience of my life that I ever had of truly dialoguing with my inner child, I would say up until the age of 26, till I drank ayahuasca, which is a psychedelic substance, I was literally living from here up. And I had no idea any of this existed. It's really tragic. Most humans walk around like that.
Yeah.
And then I dropped in and I was so connected, and I suddenly just saw this, like, I didn't see a little child per se, but it was just this beautiful, like, tender part. And I was able to offer that part the love of a mother. And it was like, whoa, there's a mother inside me. There's a little part inside me. Like, what is going on?
OMG.
And like, I don't even know how many years of therapy it would have taken for me to even be able to access the part of me that could mother. And so I just say, if you want the expedited path, take a psychedelic.
Yes, you are a little biased for sure. Do you think psychedelics are for everybody 100% of the population?
No, absolutely not. There's contraindications mentally.
What does that mean, contraindications?
Contraindications means there's things that you definitely shouldn't do.
Oh, okay.
Like if you're on lithium, or you have epilepsy, or you've got a mother who's bipolar, maybe you could do it with the last one, but who knows? We need to have an in-depth medical assessment. And certainly not if you're taking antidepressants or any other kind of substance like that.
Yes.
So need to assess the situation and really be ready to like go in and feel stable in your life. Like, have you got a home? Have you, got a support network of friends?
Massive.
Those kinds of things that,
there needs to be a stability in my perspective as well. You're much more educated in this than me, but I can just sense, because psychedelics are so crazy, all the different landscapes you can traverse, and to not have at least a certain degree of stability within oneself, I can see that being potentially hurtful.
Well, I mean stability in the outside world, because that's actually what's going to hold you when you leave. But actually, I would say when I came to plant medicine, I had almost no inner stability. And that was what I learned. These parts, I could start to find them through that.
Fair enough.
So it was actually the opposite way around for me.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, yeah.
That's very interesting. There's more we could talk about on this. There's more things I'd like to talk about on this. But for time's sake, I'd love to move on to the dark masculine if you're still feeling energy around this topic.
This is the topic I have the most energy for.
Yes,
I've noticed that. For a number of reasons.
Yeah. We're going on a walk. Alex is like, the dark masculine, like, you guys could only understand this,
It's time to talk about it.
It's time. Let's talk about it.
So what is the dark masculine? I feel so many people, just the word dark brings up this very negative connotation.
It does.
That in itself is actually a representation of how few people are doing their shadow work. So what is shadow work? This is a term that's bandied around a lot at the moment. And it's actually a term that was trademarked back in the 1980s by a man called Cliff Barry, who's an American man, and he started doing this process where you would have archetypes on a carpet. And I know you read that book this week in my house, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover,
Yes.
which is an amazing book about the divine masculine archetypes and how they can go into their shadow expressions or their reactive expressions.
Super great, straightforward. Recommend it to any man that wants a little handbook to learn about themselves.
Oh my gosh, yes. And so when we're talking about the shadow part, it's a part that we often judge in other people. So like you think someone's too loud, you think someone's too whatever, da 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 da. It's like, oh, that's normally a part of me that has been rejected because of an experience in my childhood where I was told I was too loud, or when I was too loud, actually I got less love, or someone bullied me, or whatever it was. And so we lock it away deep inside the part of us which is just not accessible. And so in internal family systems therapy, that would be a part of that we have taken away from our psyche, which is now has become disintegrated from the self, and actually that we want to bring back and say, you know what, it's okay. It's okay to have all those parts.
There's room for you here.
There's room for you here. And so the dark masculine is a part that, let's look at it. So I'll explain the light masculine so you can understand the dark. So light has its positive aspects and its negative aspects. So light is this omnipresent energy, because we know the masculine can really hold this beautiful meditative, almost sitting back energy and just witness and observe in a very clear, focused way. And that is meditation. That is, purely observation, I would call it. Then when we have like the negative aspect of that would be where we transcend the self, but I'm glad this is really interesting.
No, it's not about being disinteresting. It's just releasing energy. Yawning 101, you know.
And so when we have the light masculine, then often what can happen is if we try to transcend the self too much to the point where we're actually disembodied. We're disembodied, we're not present enough to life, and that it can be too much meditation. If you have a negative emotional experience with someone, you actually take a lot of space, but maybe too much space. You're just not willing to actually be in the experience. So dark masculine, what is that? Well, the dark masculine is the opposite of the light. So if we're talking about omnipresence and space and observation, the dark masculine is literally that which penetrates form. So actually we can look at that sexually as well, but genuinely it is the penetrative force of the masculine, which if we're looking at it from an archetypal perspective could be like the samurai, you know, coming with his sword and taking that direct focused action. Of course, when we look at the negative side of that, that's rape, that's pillaging, that's taking without consent, that's actually penetrating without the heart.
Okay. Well, yeah. So it's relating it to the archetypes. Is the dark masculine, would that be more of the warrior, like you said, and would the light masculine be akin to the magician? Like if we were going to relate it, or can all four of those archetypes be both in the light and the dark?
They can, which is exactly what's in that book. They all have the light and the dark parts.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah.
Ah, I see.
So no, they're not necessarily one or the other. Like you can come in and penetrate with the dark masculine as a warrior. You can come in and penetrate with the lover. You know, you could be like, I claim you as love. You know, you could come in and be like, I devote myself to you. Or you could say like the magician, if it were to penetrate and claim as the dark masculine, would essentially be like stating intellectually why he is so into that woman. He would be like intellectually rationalizing and like wooing her with the mind. You know?
I'd love to have a conversation right now about context and different personality types. And the reason is because, you know, as I listen to you talk, and I've listened to many different podcasts and ideas about men should be like this, there's so much generalization. Would you mind relating what you've just shared in the light and dark masculine in like maybe 2 or 3 different personalities or contexts, or times when they may not want to be penetrating, or times when it's better to be, you know, up here? 'Cause I'm thinking about a man right now who's like, wow, I have to be penetrative all the time. Okay. Because I was like that too. I was like, okay, I got to be penetrating. I have to always be like this. And this is what a man is. And if I'm not like this, then I shouldn't feel good about myself. And I really feel for men that get all of this messaging from coaches and people that are authorities saying these types of things.
Oh my gosh, I really feel for the masculine when you share that. Thank you for reminding me of how solutions focused the masculine is. It's like, okay, I'll just do that thing and then it will be the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, oh, bless you.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's so difficult, hey? And, you know, the dark masculine is safe and there is space for the dark masculine when it is transmuted through the heart. So the one question we can always come back to is, what would love do in this moment? And this comes back again to needs, because first we got to know our own needs, and then we've got to empathetically understand what's going on for another person in those moments, right? Or for our business and what its needs are, or whatever it is. And in those moments, it's like, okay, I can feel my heart has these needs. My heart can feel the needs of that. Should I betray my own needs in favor of that? What time frame can I delay my needs until 3 hours away when I can come back and meet them? You know what I mean? There's such a level of self-awareness that actually does need to go into these questions. And that's why therapy and, in my opinion, psychedelics are so vital.
Yes.
Until we've tapped these depths and actually been with ourselves and understood, it's very difficult to know.
100%. It makes me reflect actually more so on the society that we live in, because at least where I grew up, I'm assuming it's the same in England. I'm very certain it's the same in England. You know, being here, meeting some of the men here, hearing their stories, is to slow down and meditate for an hour, or to take a weekend and go in nature by yourself, is a very weird thing to do. We've learned that that's a strange thing to do. But for so much of our evolution, it was a very normal thing to do. In fact, it was medicine to take time to do that. So I want to just give permission to guys out there. Like, I've had so many impulses, and I'd be curious to hear your experience of things to do. Like, oh man, I feel like I just need to go like live with monks, or I feel like I need to go like I need to do like not go on my computer all day, or not message any of my family for a few days and just be with myself. I want to just give permission to any of the men who you feel a need or an intuition of something you need to go do or say or experience. And I want to just invite you to trust that and go do that. I just think we live in a culture that disconnects us from our own intuition. And there's so many things. Like, who's to say you should even go do what we're saying to them? Like, your intuition is the number one thing. And to me, that's the ultimate form of knowing how to act in any context. Is being connected to one's own heart and gut gives us spontaneous right action. We're always looking to somebody else for the formula or the pathway, although can be very valuable. I think has led me astray, and like having like a guru complex, like looking for the answer from somebody else who's supposedly more enlightened than me or knows more about me than I do. I feel really called to that. I have a lot of energy around that. Yeah, I feel just, yeah.
There's two ways with that. There's two concepts that are coming up for me there. One is, you might think, okay, well, I should go meditate for an hour, but then you sit there and you don't have any skills or knowledge of meditation, and you're just like,
this fucking sucks.
I just sat here for an hour and I don't really feel any more connected, any clearer on what I need to do. And so
I could have been working for this hour. It's a waste of time.
So yeah, it's a weird one. If you don't know how to connect to the self, then it's just sometimes difficult. That's when, again, exercise, guidance from someone can actually be helpful. However, I remember at the very beginning of my spiritual journey, let's call it, or just transformation, self-development, there was this real sense of, I shouldn't like partying anymore. I shouldn't like going to a rave and having a dance.
I had that too, yes.
And actually, after 2 years of this, I was like becoming very stiff and like, I think I know better than everyone.
Yeah,
and
I had the same thing.
Look how spiritual I am.
Oh my God, you guys aren't as intelligent as me. That's honestly what I thought. I thought I was more.
No, I did. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I said I entered that really annoying I know better archetype like for 2 full years, and a few of my friends were like, "What's happened to Alex?" And it wasn't until I gave myself permission. I was like, "Gosh, I really just want to go and dance and take some MDMA and feel the communitas, feel the bass, feel my body, feel the crowd, feel the DJ."
Yeah.
And then that is actually a very spiritual experience for me. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
I love that. Let's go.
I really want to circle back into the dark masculine.
Yeah, we kind of just touched on that.
Because I didn't really explain why it's important or why I care
didn't.
about
Yeah,
it. And
please share.
I more shared like what it is. So it's this dark, penetrating, almost ravishing energy in the masculine, which Why do we think like 50 Shades of Grey was so phenomenally popular when it was one of the worst books I've ever read in terms of like the grammar, the copy, there was like typos in it. It was so bad. And it's just because women want that. They desire that, you know? And one of my teachers, Sophie Josephina, she's an amazing woman to follow in terms of polarity work and men and feminine nuance and depth. She talks about being pushed up against the wall. You know, that is what your average woman is going to want. Beyond her sexual trauma, beyond her like mind when she's in her head, that's what she desires. And but it's not just in the context of women, it's also in the context of business. It's being that leader that isn't in his people pleaser. It's just taking the action that we really know in our heart, in our soul. This is what's right. This is what we perceive as right in this moment. And a lot of men are afraid of that. Look at the Me Too movement, you know? Look at the Me Too movement. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, men are afraid often to even make a move on a woman.
A lot of men actually feel that. I feel that. I still feel that. Like, can I say that? Can I do that? Like,
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot for the masculine. It's a really hard place. They're being told like, you should care more, but oh, you should lead more. And it's the way of the dark masculine, which I truly feel the planet needs at this time, not just for our businesses and our relationships, but for the good of humanity. We need men in their leadership. We need men in their power. We need men connected to knowing what's true for them and leading audaciously at a time where, again, coming back to this not knowing what to do, that the man hates that emasculated place of not knowing. Well, we are moving towards more of that. Look at the hard problems in the world right now. Climate change, migration issues. There's going to be so many more complex issues coming up where we're going to have to come together very humbly as a species and say, I don't actually know what to do.
yeah.
And I'm here for it. I'm here to show up in my fullness and do what I can. But actually, until we've all sat around together and dialogued in a very hard and nuanced situation, without knowing what to do, are we going to come to whatever collectively is the best option?
Yes. Let's go into some practical things. Men are about practicality. I mean, we all need practical advice. I don't know. Sometimes I generalize too much. One thing that came up for me that I think is valuable when it comes to, let's just use the sexual context, pushing a woman up against the wall. Now, the interesting thing is women want that, right? As you said, when they're not in their head or their trauma, whatever. The other interesting thing is that men also typically desire that. They want to push a woman up against the wall. They want to be in that powerful role. But the men that I think we're talking to, a lot of men are so used to either being shamed when they're in their power, or they learn through their mothers that their father's masculine aggression or controllingness was too much. So they learn to just wipe away all things that have to do with domination or control or aggression. Even though being a big part of the dark masculine, I know, is being connected to that leadership, that forcefulness, and forcefulness can be with love, you know, and safety.
Dominance, control, and those things are the unhealthy dark masculine. So there's so much nuance in it.
Yes.
Carry on.
I think a great practical thing is for a man out there who wants to tap back into his own sexual desires is to actually do it in private first. And I often recommend actually having a self-pleasure practice where there's nobody around, there's no one else in the home, you're just by yourself, and you really take your time and not just touch yourself and aim for an orgasm, but actually learn to touch your whole body. Learn to like move your body in different ways. I make my practice a bit of like a sort of sexual yoga practice even, where it's very like full of fluid movement and I explore where my body wants to go. And I see how different powerful movements feel in my body. And I will almost always, or I would say a lot of the time, have certain fears or blocks. Like, oh, I can't do that, or whoa, 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 whoa. And it's just my body not being familiar with that. And I found that being alone, being in private, it's a great space to practice with that. And then once there's some safety around being more connected to my sexuality, it's so much easier to access it with a woman. In fact, then I actually feel comfortable to do it. You know, from the woman's perspective, what are some things that you think you could help a man with? Say you're in a sexual dynamic with a man, and you don't know this perhaps, but he's going through this process, and he wants to feel safe with you. I've talked to many men, and they don't actually feel safe with women in sexual context because of their own shame and insecurity, and they've articulated to me that they want them to know their vulnerabilities, but they're very afraid to share them because it's about sexuality and like, I don't want to be the guy that shows up in this sexual context and like can't, fuck,
Yeah.
What is a way that a man could articulate his vulnerabilities if he really has this need to, that wouldn't turn a woman, because there's also a way that would probably turn a woman off, and they don't want that, and the woman doesn't want that. So is there a way that they can communicate their vulnerabilities that doesn't turn the woman off and can actually liberate love and passion?
The one thing that's really difficult for a woman to watch is a man in his shame and in his
Yeah.
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 So a man has to let go of his shame on his own without a woman present.
So you're saying with men?
With
Yes.
men on his own or with a therapist or whatever it takes on his
Yeah.
own in his practice, which you just described, which I think sounds profoundly beneficial for a lot
Yes.
of men to be doing.
Yes.
Like if a man shows up and just be like, I'm ashamed, and starts crying or just crumples on the floor, never going to be attractive to a woman.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Always going to be a turn off.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, like I'm sorry, that's just a fact.
I understand that.
If a man, I've actually often had this with multiple lovers. The first few times that we engage, they can't maintain an erection. There's a level of excitement, there's a level of performance anxiety, and it's
I
just
feel
like,
for my brothers out there.
it's really sweet. And I'm always just like, gosh, there's no rush. And so I guess the one reframe I would like to put to a man is that a woman wants to get pushed up against the wall, but she's not going to want that until she feels fully safe with a man. And I imagine that's going to be quite a few sexual encounters down the line.
Yes.
Maybe the chemistry is great and that happens first time. Great, whatever. However, for most women, they're going to want you to be attuned to them. So
Yeah.
what happens when a man is so in his head about a situation is he's literally in his head,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the number one tip I would give men
Yes.
to get out of their head in any of these initial scenarios is to pay attention to the woman.
Yes.
It's so simple.
Yes.
It's so obvious.
Huge pattern shift.
Follow her breath. That's it. How is your woman breathing? Are her lips parting when you caress her a certain way? Is her face flushing? Have you seen any like redness on her neck? These are signs that your woman is becoming aroused. What I would invite men, is she parting her legs? What is she doing? Because these are all signs that she's becoming ready. And the more clued in you are to her, as opposed to in my head, oh my God, what's going to happen? Can I perform? I don't know. Then you're actually going to naturally just be aroused because you're looking at the object of your attraction and she's fucking aroused right now,
Yes,
right?
yes,
and
yeah,
so it's
yeah.
just like, oh my God, I'm arousing her. This is great. Let's just crack on.
That's so the reaction, even if it has nothing to do with me, and like they're just like very good at tuning into their own pleasure, I take credit for it. Like, oh yeah, I'm the man. Okay, It's so true. Men do that all the time.
Men are very visual. They're very visual, and it's like, wow, if you can actually just observe your woman, you're going to
Yeah.
get so out of your head. I think the main tip I would give a man is simply to just own how he's feeling without piling shame onto himself in the moment and just say, gosh, right
Yes.
now I'm just feeling a lot of performance
Yes.
pressure. Would you be okay if we just stopped for a moment and breathed together or just had some eye gazing?
Wow, that's actually very profound for me because that's a whole different because even in that moment, you're still leading. You can still be leading
Yes.
by owning and taking accountability, responsibility for your feelings. And I remember hearing, what's his name, to the court, John Wineland. I remember him talking about how it's actually very attractive for a woman to see a man experiencing some of his feminine, some of his emotionality, but when it's held by the masculine. When it actually can be a very big turn on.
It can only happen when he's not ashamed.
Yes, exactly,
If he can
yes.
simply observe what's happening, gosh, I'm losing my erection, I'm getting in my head, and he can come back to himself, not shame himself for that. And then the thing, what a woman wants is to be reassured that she's desirable.
Yeah.
I'm at the place in confidence in my own sexuality where if a man's losing his erection, I generally consider and think it's because he's actually so into me that he's, in his head, as
Yes.
opposed to like, God, I must be really ugly, or any of those thoughts don't enter my head. But they do
Yes.
enter the heads of a lot of women.
Yes.
And so for a man to say, gosh, I'm just noticing I'm really in my head right now. It's nothing to do with you. You're fucking amazing. But can we
Yeah.
just take a moment to connect in a different way?
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
as a woman would just be like, of course, And if you're with a woman who then shames you for that, fuck her. She's not the right woman.
I love that. And a lot of women do actually shame. And that's why a lot of men are scared to do this because they've been really hurt by women. I get the DMs from men that finally express a little bit of vulnerability and they get totally slapped in the face. And they're like, I really can't do this.
Actually, one of my clients has expressed the same. He tried to change the dynamic between him and his wife, who he's now left. And and whenever he tried to drop into his vulnerable, she was just like, no, like I can't have you like that. And I think it's often easier with new partners to take on a new way of being than it is to put a new way of being into an old dynamic, because often those dynamics are entrenched. There's a reason why you've attracted a partner who's like harsh or in her masculine or difficult to communicate with. And so if you can remove yourself, do the healing work, and then move into a softer space, a safe space, then that would be beneficial for you if you're trying to move into being. But it's a really fine balance, Brett. And honestly, as a woman, when a man goes into like a very soft space, then essentially as a woman, I'm jumping into the mother. I'm jumping into the caretaker role. And one of my mentors shared with me right at the start of my journey that there's a dynamic that essentially, if you are in a parental role for your lover for more than 20, max 30% of the time, then the polarity is lost. The vibe is lost. So a man has to take great care to process as much as he can with his men. But when he brings to his woman, he's just got to bring it with acceptance and the next step forward.
Totally. And I mean, and by the way, I think men can process 95 to 100% of their stuff by themselves or with women. I know I certainly can. Sometimes I might appreciate a feminine energy, but maybe I could buy a session with a therapist or something like that to just process it.
Completely.
That's a lesson I also learned in my last relationship, is the value of having, because me and my past ex, we were both therapists, right? So it's so easy for us to go into that therapist role for each other, which was actually very beautiful and healing. As a pro, or to shine some light on the power of that, some of my shame was actually healed in that relationship. I learned to love myself through that dynamic because of how nurturing and compassionate and motherly she was to me. However, that did kill polarity at times. So I agree there's a fine balance, but I also think there is room. And ideally, I would love to have my partner be someone who, I want to have that level of vulnerability and depth, but I don't want to lose polarity. Because then we're fucked.
All men have, this is what Carl Jung calls the anima and the animus. The animus is the masculine part and the anima is the feminine. And we all have both of them within. And some people have more, I think I have a little bit more animus than most women. And that's due to my upbringing, the trauma around my father and all those things, and the work that I've done in my life. And I've come to accept that. There's quite a healthy masculine inside me. And there's a lot of men who have this very, present feminine quality. And it's just accepting that, knowing there is space for it, but there's only a certain amount of space for that in a healthy dynamic with a masculine and feminine relationship.
I want to get a live reflection from you on this podcast here. So I think I'm the same as you, but with the anima. I think I have a bit more anima than a lot of men. But I've also very connected to my animus. I'm very connected to my masculine. And I'd be curious to get your perspective because you spent some time with me. What do you experience me more connected to? And can you sense my feminine when I speak and when I live my life? Can you sense that part of me as well?
I feel you're very balanced.
Yeah.
Like I feel you're very decisive and you take action, and that's because you're in integrity with what you want to do and you do it.
Yeah.
That's very masculine.
Yeah.
But then you stop and you're connected to the heart. Or if I shared that I'm feeling whatever I was feeling, like yesterday morning I was trying to do my accounts and oh my gosh, I entered like meltdown. I don't really melt down in any other area of my life. And you just stopped and you put your hand on your heart and you were just witnessing my suffering, and I could really feel you with me.
Yes.
And that was really, really beautiful. And so I really see you as balanced in both.
I appreciate that. That's the best compliment I could receive. That's kind of what I felt too, actually. What's the way that men can start connecting more with their feminine so that they can really hold a woman when she's going through something? Because something that's been reflected back to me by multiple partners is like, I know you're here, but I can't feel you.
Really?
Yeah. Well, this is part of my learning process.
I don't feel that from you at all.
You haven't experienced that, but I mean, I've gotten this reflection multiple times because I'm triggered. When I was with you, it wasn't about me. If you were that upset about me, then maybe I wouldn't feel so heart open to you. I can close off if I feel criticized or blamed, and so sometimes I'm not always in my heart like you felt me yesterday. So
I think it's fine for men to take space if they need it in the moment. This is a really interesting thing, and it's kind of like a princess dynamic in the feminine archetype, because often what happens is we're not connected to our needs. And then we start to understand that we have needs. Then we feel a lot of rage, can often be an emotion that comes up, or anger, like, gosh, I let all these boundaries be crossed and I'm just, we start to feel it all. And then there actually comes this moment where instead of asking for our needs cleanly, we start to ask for our needs in a very entitled way.
Right.
It's like, I need this, then you should give it to me.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
just
yeah.
forget that there's actually another person in that dynamic. And so it's very sweet because it's very common. It happens. It's the natural cycle. So don't shame yourself with that if that's where you've been. Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. So there's that moment where the feminine can be very entitled. And if that is what you're receiving as a man, then it's okay to step away, because holding the feminine in her chaos and not taking it personally is like the ideal situation for most men, but it's never ever at the expense of actually your self-respect, or someone actually abusing you or being mean to you or just being malicious. It's like, that's not okay. Like, that's not okay. It's never okay. Take space if you need it. And similarly, I think it's nice to think that because we understand something intellectually, very masculine again, that we should then be able to implement it straight away. But no, like you said, when you discover all these different parts, there's a practice that happens where somehow finally the moment happens where those neurons, those pathways in your brain connect, and they go, yeah, this is connected to this. And that's the difference between an intellectual concept and embodiment, i.e. I'm triggered, I should be able to just whatever, but hey, I'm actually really having a massive physiological response right now. And so to go away and take care of your physiological response, like the heart beating hard, the adrenaline pumping, the feelings of rage or anger, and go away and process those before you come back, and simply saying in those moments, I'm going to take some space right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love the Mike Tyson quote. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And then limbic hijack happens. Your fear centers just go fucking crazy. And I felt so confident going into a dialogue with somebody before. And then they say that one thing that just gets on my nerves. And all of a sudden, my logical thinking faculties, where I have this plan, I know how to communicate well, go out the window, and now I'm in defense. And now all of a sudden, the thoughts that I felt so certain of, they're not even really showing up anymore. And I'm kind of just like, yeah.
That's why it's important to take space, because I feel like
I think that's so big.
What can be such a really great practice, and I've been in this process myself for the last week, is just like, just get it all out. All the things that are annoying you, all the things that you need to just write a list, and just feel it all.
Totally.
And then come back to, okay, what do I actually want right now? Well, I want to preserve this relationship. I actually really care about this person. They actually add a lot to my life. Actually, if they left, I'd be quite sad for a number of reasons. They are not necessarily bad. There's actually just an in-between zone here, this gray zone, which again, for the masculine, is quite difficult to connect to. It's either like this or that, but no, there's often like an in-between space that we get to find if we can sit with it long enough in the space of curiosity. And
1000%.
so just, coming back to those, what do I truly want out of this situation?
Yeah.
And then like keeping that as present as you can. And I think often, so you just shared that these negative reflections can come back at you, or criticism or whatever.
Yes.
I think then adding into the process of writing the list and then knowing what you want, in can come a process of like, what's the worst case scenario here? That I turn up to this conversation and that person just slays me. They just go in. And it's like, okay, what is that reality like right now in my head? Okay, it's bad. It doesn't feel good. Okay, sit with that until the charge goes away. You're like, okay, if they think that, that's what they're going to think. And then it's like, okay, again, what maybe there could actually be a really great outcome here.
Yes.
And actually then just focus on that, but having really gone into the possibility of the worst outcome.
Yes.
That's going to help you stay in the center.
That's a great one. I love that one. It's like preparing for the worst, which is actually very valuable. I want to give a very practical, tangible 3-step process. Step number 1, it's a 10-minute process. The first 3 minutes, do what Alex said and just express everything that you're feeling. Just speak, pull out your phone and hit the voice memo recording button in your phone. Go to your voice memos, hit record, and just speak into your phone in a private space for 3 minutes. Let everything out and don't censor yourself. First step, 3 minutes. The next 3 minutes, after you get it all out, lay down on your back for the next 3 minutes and honestly just breathe and let your body breathe as it wants to breathe, and feel just focus on physical sensations only. That's it for the next 3 minutes. And in the last 3 minutes, do what Alex said again and write down, how do I want to show up and what do I really want here? And then come back to the conversation. It's something you can do really simple. It takes 10 minutes. And those 3 things will be extremely valuable for you. if you really want, you can switch around step 1 and step 2. If you feel really physiologically activated, you can do that first, where you just lay down or breathe and let the chemicals pass. But those 3 steps takes 10 minutes, and that could turn things around. 10 minutes, you can do a lot.
I love your practical approaches, these step by steps. Brett, I'm so inspired by this. I'm going to take this away from our conversation.
Cool. I feel pretty good about what we talked about today. I feel ready to close things out. Do you? Or is there more that you want to talk about? I'm not in a rush.
No, I feel good. Yeah. I guess the final thing, I want to come back to the dark masculine.
Yes.
I really believe that until men are connecting to their heart-centered, penetrative energy, that the world is just going to continue on a bad way, in a bad path. I feel like whatever shame a man is feeling, whatever darkness he feels is inside him, whatever stuff he feels is insurmountable, to just continue to go deep into that as possible, because out the other side of that is a man who is fully integrated and in his power, and it's what the planet needs more than anything right now.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And what would be like a first thing somebody could go do to start to do the work with their dark masculine? Like, what journey could they set off with? What's the first step?
I think the lowest hanging fruit is therapy.
Yeah.
It's just simple. It's accessible. It's scary if you've never done it.
Yeah.
You're going to sit there for the first 2-3 sessions, feel a bit uncomfortable. Then you're probably going to cry for the third and fourth session. Then you're going to realize your emotions aren't that bad. And then you're actually going to be like, hey, I feel a bit better about everything.
Yes.
And I just think that therapy, it's not having to prepare for a psychedelic experience. It's not having to have a hard conversation with someone you know. It's actually just a safe space for you to begin to unburden yourself.
Yes.
And from there, the next steps are possible. I would say follow accounts online that really inspire you.
Yes.
In terms of the dark masculine, like David Dada, Sophie Josephina, John Wineland. It's from the core, not to the core.
Oh, it's from the core.
The book's called From the Core.
Okay.
Robert Glover's book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. These are all resources
Super good.
that can start to unfurl you into whatever the next step is. Find a mentor, find a teacher, find someone who you can really resonate with, who can take you on those next steps.
Yes, I love that. I love the idea of finding role models in community. There's tons of men's circles in almost every city. There's men's circles you can access now. Some are paid, some are free. I would definitely recommend getting in circles with men.
Even Robert Glover, actually, the No More Mr. Nice Guy, which is just the seminal handbook for any man who feels he's, like I described at the very start of this, not getting the woman, not getting the promotion, prone to fits of anger, but seems to think most of the time he's a really nice guy. This is your handbook, go get it. And at the back of that book, actually, there are groups, No More Mr. Nice Guy groups.
Oh, they have those.
All around the world. So you would then tapped into a community that's dedicated to supporting you through that. And on the other side of your nice guy is a very sexy, wonderful, dark masculine that every woman is waiting for.
Yes, who's getting what he wants. I love that. I want to give one last message to the viewers as well that I feel called to share. My message is this. No matter what you're going through in your life right now, whether it's marital problems or health problems, or you hate your job, or there's something that you've been wanting to get but you're frustrated, my invitation to you is to remind yourself that the possibility, the ability to live a life that you truly are happy with, that really lights you up, that brings you a sense of love and excitement and connection with people, that life is still possible no matter what age you are, no matter what background you come from. And my invitation and first step would be to go find some space for yourself where you feel inspired. Nature, buy an Airbnb for a weekend, and just kind of forget about your life and write down, what do I really want? What's most important to me? Reconnect with your values and find out who you want to be in this life, because that can drive you through the challenges along the way to really live a life that you want. That's it. Cool.
Thank you, Brett. Really excited to have spent this time with you. Really honored to have had you in my space. It's been very inspirational just to be around your energy. And I just think you're a shining bright light for all the men that find you. And I just bless your work and your path.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I echo that for you. You're an amazing woman. I'm very grateful for our friendship. Yeah, I'll be doing another podcast sometime in the coming years.
Yes, please.
Yeah, cool. And for all the men watching, you can follow either of us on socials, or you have a website people can go to or something of that nature?
No.
We'll do socials.
Yeah.
Socials, it's linked below.
Alchemy_with_Alex.
Yes. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. Hope this was really valuable for you guys. We love you. We really do.
Ciao.